Okay. Thank you. So thank you everyone for joining us again. Let me just sample a few more introductions in the chat. We have, I think I had read Ali Hassan Tadichas. So we have Naomi Ngoge, who's completed her coursework in MA Counseling Psychology, working on her thesis, looking forward to learning more on quality rights today. Karibu sana. Josephine Oguna, counseling psychologist. Her expectation is, where does one draw the line in allowing a loved one with mental illness to decide on seeking help? Very good question. Karibu Anita Musioki, a clinical psychologist as well. Your expectation is understanding legal frameworks such as mental health laws and patient rights. Becoming paramount in this situation. Okay, so I think it is understanding how legal frameworks such as mental health laws and patient rights, how they become paramount in these situations. Colleagues might discuss instances where a nuanced understanding of these laws influence decision-making processes, emphasizing the importance of legal literacy in healthcare settings. Karibu Maud Mulwa, counseling psychologist as well, expecting to learn more about legal capacity for vulnerable groups. This course has been an eye-opener. That's great feedback. Karibu Mudhoni Njagi, a graduate counseling psychology student as well. Her expectation is to find out the balance between informed consent and preventing a patient from injuring themselves and others. Very valid point. So let me come back again to you, Charlotte, to respond to this question as I try to find out why Kevin has not been able to log in. So if you could kindly share with us, how do you feel that we can practically advocate to increase the public knowledge on these rights, that is both legal capacity, the right to decide, ending coercion, violence, and abuse, and how can we apply this in our training and professional practice? Charlotte?
I believe through education and awareness campaigns, sharing through social media platforms or workshops and community events, and also encouraging programs such as these, because I've learned so much that I haven't been able to learn even through my education. I've learned a lot from this course basically, and I'm very glad that I took it. So promoting courses such as these and opening them up not only to psychology students, but to the public in general, to also ensure people are aware of their rights. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Charlotte. Sorry, I was speaking with Kevin. Thank you for sharing those insights that are very good. Probably I can ask you to comment on some of the charts that have been written. For example, how do we balance between having informed consent and preventing a patient from injuring themselves and others? So this is to imagine a patient who's coming, is injuring self and others, is putting themselves and others at risk, and probably is not giving consent for treatment. How do you feel such a situation can be handled?
Just as I said before, there's informed consent is basically supported decision making. They go hand in hand, and finding the balance between informed consent and ensuring patient safety is very important. So I think it's important to provide all necessary information to the patient so they can make the informed consent about their care. But if there's the risk of self-injury or injury to others around them, then healthcare professionals have the duty to intervene and take necessary precautions to ensure the patient's safety and for those around them. It's a very delicate balance, but the well-being of the patient should always be top priority. And I think that's what we've learned from the course in general about, person-centered care.
Okay, I think you've answered that well, and especially where you say there are gray areas. It's not always black and white, and yes, and sometimes professionals find themselves in a tough position. But I think you've answered that well. Collins tries to join us. I will kindly request Irene. We have someone. Okay, kindly mute your mic. We are hearing. Okay, Mercy, kindly mute yourself.
So we are set.
Thank you.
Okay, I have been able to mute from this end. Mwalimu, Irene Kimani, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your willingness to share your experiences with us. So I'd like to kindly ask, what was your experience in going through module 3 and 4, and what stood out for you particularly?
Thank you very much, Charity, and good afternoon all. Wow, for me, I don't know what to say. I have been a mental health practitioner, counselor, psychologist, therapist, whatever name we are given for a long time. And when I went through this module, I'm like, wow, the mistakes I have made, the mistakes we have made. And, we get to a place where, I don't know, it becomes like we have to do what we think is right, but may not be right. Because, of course, what came out was respecting the human rights. Even if this human, we believe, is not able to make a sound decision over their life, we have to respect them. They are the person they are, they have a disability. There is something somewhere that is not working right, but we respect them for who they are. We have to protect them. The cohesion. Yeah, like when I was doing my internship in a hospital in Kenyatta, one of the things which we used to be told is that,
Hello, Mwalimu, I think we have lost you. Hello, Irene, can you hear us? Okay, I think.
Sorry about that. There was an interruption from my side.
Okay.
Yes, I would say one of the things we used to be told is that if somebody, wants to die by suicide, has attempted, is that they should be admitted immediately. And this is something I carried over even when I started practicing as a student's counselor and also an associate dean before I became a lecturer. So I used to know that, if anything, we look for a place and they're admitted immediately. So when I'm going through this, I'm like, oh my goodness, how many human rights have we infringed? How many things have we really done wrong? But for me, I was like, this is good because I'm here to learn. And it's also like what Charlotte is saying. Sometimes it's a delicate line because sometimes we deal with students who are very violent, and especially maybe they have a mental health issue and then they mix it with drugs. So it would make them violent and they are causing a lot of, disruption and you are called. So of course, the immediate thing would be like, where the medics come, and then they are taken, forced admission. And some actually, like even Chris was saying in the group about the rehab, Chris and Phoebe, and I know they know why, because sometimes some people are so disruptive. You just tap in and say, this is it. And you have rehabs which have specialties. They send people, to come. They catch you unawares. If you hear the stories, it's like a movie, So they time you somewhere. And before you know it, you're bundled into a vehicle and find yourself in a rehab. And the family will justify, this person has been stealing from us. This person is disruptive. We have reached the end. So for me, it has been a very awakening, but still that line of, especially if there are danger to themselves or to others, I think that's a point of discussion for us. And of course, in Kenya, if you try to commit suicide or to die by suicide, it's, you will be arrested. And recently there was a judge who overruled this and he said, no, let the person go for mental health. So it's been awakening, it's been enlightening, it's been empowering, but also many things. Like now when you ask the question, how do we raise awareness? Because everyone wants a solution, but sometimes you go for the quick fix. It's so easy to have somebody take this problem away from me. Come, rescue me from this problem. But are we helping the person? And I really liked where they said, let's listen to the person. Let's bring somebody who they can trust. Let's bring somebody who they can at least, know that they are there for them, because sometimes they don't want to listen to anyone. But there's always that one person that they can listen to and they can be there for them. So still a lot of gray areas, but still a lot for us to learn. And also for me, like, wow, all those people, we had to make those decisions. I hope they are getting better, because unfortunately, most of them became very resentful and they were full of anger and they were like, how could you do this to me? I didn't want to go. You people made the decision and I don't want to be part of you. And we isolate them more. So Charity, for me, I'm not coming here like I know it all. I'm coming here that I have learned more and we have this room for discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Asante sana mwalimu. This is what I was hoping that we would have today, like candid, authentic conversation, because yes, it is not black and white. And you, I think, have already preempted, the examples of violations that happen both in rehabs and psychiatric facilities. So probably I would ask you, how is it you would do it differently? Like one scenario that you have had, and based on what you have learned, how would you do differently this time around?
Yes, thank you very much, Charity, for that question. Yes, so if I'm called to such a situation, maybe it's a school setting or, wherever it is, first is to help, listen to the person, then find out from them. And of course, somebody will ask, they are not even in a state to be, to be coherent. They are not even in a state to talk. They are shouting, they are screaming, they are destroying things. How do we do this? Okay. So depending on the situation, because you don't have answers that fit everyone. Yeah. But depending on the situation, for me, I would take time. I remember this young man who came, and they want, and they're the ones who have brought themselves. But ultimately, you can see where they are headed. But listen to them. Find out exactly what's going on with you. Who can we call? What do you want in your life? Somebody would say, I'm done. I have talked and I remember when I was a young counselor, this happened to me. A young man came and he was like, I am done. And I said, have you tried to talk to other people? He said, I am done. So I started, have you talked to the chaplain? I said, I have been there and I told them, I don't believe in God. I'm done with this life. I'm through. Okay, I told them, have you tried to talk to anyone in the family? They said they even know me. In fact, they are the cause. I am done. Have you even tried to talk to, we went around until finally we got one person, a mentor in his life. And he said, yeah, that one person, if he can come here right now, I will not do this. So we tried, that person was in a meeting, he was not reachable, it was, but finally, I tell you, I spent the whole day with him. Finally, he showed up and he took the young man and they talked and we continued with therapy and all that. So what I'm saying is, let's not look for shortcuts. Let's do due diligence. And one of the things they were saying is that each of these places, they need enough staff, they need enough supervision for this to happen. Because sometimes you find people do this because they are few. You have so many patients and you only have few staff. So you end up abusing or cohesive, or you don't even have enough money. Yeah, so for me, I would say, let's do due diligence. We are here to learn, we are learning. Let's also consult with others, but let's look for the best solution for this individual to protect their right, even if they are sick. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. That is very, very insightful and challenging. And thank you even for putting yourself in the line to say that, you have made mistakes as well and are learning. So let me ask you a final question, because I know you do have another meeting.
Thank you.
How can we practically advocate to increase public knowledge, like practical examples of places, platforms where we can advocate, and how can we apply this both in our training and practice? I think for practice, you've spoken quite a bit, but how is it applicable in our training?
Okay, thank you very much, Charity. I would say that in fact, like this training, it should have been for the whole of this staff. I know it was geared towards, of course, the psychology students and the ones who are doing, involved in mental health. But this is a good place to start. Let this training be open. You see, like Eddie Kimani, the video you showed us in the beginning, he's very open with his condition and what he went through. And he has been an encouragement and an inspiration to all. So let the message go out there that there is nothing wrong with having a mental health issue. We are here to support. Let's create awareness. Let's do initiatives. Those who have taught in my classes, I know that some of them are here. I always tell them, every semester, let's have a mental health initiative. How do we create awareness to our peers? And as I challenge the students, I also challenge me. How do I create it to my fellow staff, to the people who we feel are in, very significant places, but maybe they not have this information. So that is why we need to come up and get together and get the message out there. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Asante sana mwalimu. Very well said. I don't know if anyone has a very hot question for mwalimu before she leaves. Otherwise, we will continue the conversation. Kevin, I know you've joined through a different phone. Kindly raise your hand so that we know that you're here. Anyone with a quick burning question for mwalimu? I like that Patience Mwema has said, yes, we are here to learn, relearn, and unlearn. A beautiful place to be. Fantastic. Maud acknowledges, I hear you, madam. I have also made a million mistakes. Thank you. Thank you, Mwalimu, for taking time to share your insights with us. I will release you because of the other engagement that you have. Dr. Jared Menecha will be speaking on behalf of faculty on Saturday, and we thank you for making time to represent the faculty today. Asante sana.
Thank you too, and thank you all.
Okay. All right, has Kevin managed to join us? Maybe you can lift up your hand or speak, unmute and speak. Okay, I think he's not yet here, so I'll answer the same set of questions as I encourage any questions in the chat. Please raise any questions that you have in the chat, and I also open it up to every participant to respond to the questions on the chat, because like we said, this is self-learning. All of us, are learning together, including the faculty. So we don't have experts in quality rights. We all learn and we challenge each other. So please put questions in the chat, and also feel free to comment as well. I think what I would say as we wait for Kevin to be able to join us is I do live with a mental health condition. I also care for someone with a mental health condition and another neurological, which is dementia. And I'm glad it was one example that was used in this cohort, because the WHO qualifies mental, neurological, and substance use conditions together because they are very much the chicken and the egg. It's hard to know which started where. And so as we have this conversation, it is important to go beyond psychiatry to ensuring that we are speaking about substance use, which I'm glad has been spoken about today, and neurological conditions as well. And neurological, we have epilepsy that falls in neurological, dementia, and so on, or even seizures. There are certain conditions that come with seizures, and that usually signifies something that's a challenge with the brain, which in my understanding is the hardware, while the mind is the software. So what I would say is in the issue of legal capacity, we have many patient support groups where we have both patients and caregivers. And we've been trying to push this issue of advance directives. I think the most common issue that we have heard is that of not being tied. Like, for example, one of us had a relapse just as COVID was starting, and she was 8 months pregnant. And so, the sister called me and she said, Charity, so-and-so is unwell. She had said that she does not want to be tied up anymore. And they were also scared because, handling her with the pregnancy, she was at risk of harming herself already. She had been, very hyper and very abusive and a bit violent for 12 hours already through the night, and they were worried even about the baby. And so I remember she called and asked, okay, now if we don't tie her, what is the alternative? And this lady had not, let me just call her Njeri. Njeri had not specified what it is that she would prefer in place of tying. So we looked at the options, other options that were there, and we said, okay, one would be an ambulance where she can be managed in an ambulance with a sedative until she gets to the hospital. Another would be probably for someone to come from either the hospital or the pharmacy to sedate her and then take her in a taxi to the hospital. Those are the options that we looked at. And then finally, it was a very hard, we had such a hard time soon after COVID with so many cases because she was a patient of Mathare. She could not pass the barriers at that time because, we had all these guards, and even if we had been able to get a letter for her to move through the barriers, she still wasn't allowed, and she was in Nyeri, and Nyeri PGH does have a psychiatric unit, but I think the capacity is 8 patients, and most hospitals were keeping patients at half capacity for COVID, restriction. And so finally, they got an ambulance, they got her there. They were only able to have her for 2 days. They referred her to Mathare. Mathare could not take her in because they don't have a single delivery pack, which is against, one of the things that we read in this coursework, that, emergency health services, according to our Constitution, Article 43, including reproductive services, should be available. And so even as a psychiatric facility, being that she needed gynae services and she needed psychiatric services, they should have been in a position to. And so you imagine as a whole level 6 facility not being able to handle that, and they sent her back to Nyeri. And we had such a hard time because from that time, she was admitted 6-7 times at Nyeri PGH and at Mathare because of, being discharged before she's well, because there are other patients who need these beds. The hospitals are at half capacity. I remember we had to go to the media to get Mathare open again because after COVID, they had literally closed the clinics and sent some patients home who are not well so that they could meet the half capacity. And so in this particular case, my learning was that one, in the advance directives, because later she got well and she was very angry at us because when neighbors and people around saw an ambulance, everyone wanted to know what the problem is, and so it exposed her. So what we thought, you know, because she had not given exactly how she wants to be treated, she was still angry about the ambulance being there. So my lesson then was that advance directives should look, you know, at an issue from the beginning to an end. And when you say this should not happen, then what should happen in its place? And if that thing is not available, say the family is not able to afford an ambulance, if that is what she has chosen, then what should the alternative be? I think the other thing is, just as many of us read, that even where someone has advance directives, it is very easy for people to not know, that is one, and to not know any better or have other alternatives. And so I think in terms of violence, coercion, I think she was protected more because of the pregnancy than her psychiatric condition. I highly doubt if the family would have called if she wasn't 8 months pregnant. And so, I mean, she has been admitted many times and, you know, she's tied up, and she does get quite restless and agitated and violent and very abusive. And I remember even later we had to, you know, talk to the father, you know, because of some abuses she had done. And even if she was unwell, there are certain things within the culture that, you know, once spoken, you know, culturally and traditionally need to be punished per se. And so we negotiated within the family, and the father agreed, okay, yes, you can bring a goat and say sorry, you know. So culture still plays a part in such issues. And for example, if a woman was, when unwell, you know, removing her clothes, and in some cultures that is very, very unacceptable, and especially if the paternal the fathers and the paternal people in that home are able to see that person, then culture still plays a part. And so I would say, in terms of violence, coercion, and abuse, the first thing we need to do is to look at what is the root cause of violence, coercion, and abuse, because we as as persons with mental health conditions are not violent. And this has been proven in studies that have said that even in cases of schizophrenia that may have higher risk of violence, it's only 5 or 10% of violent crimes that are as a result of schizophrenia. So why is it that we do see violence? I would say through working with over 40 families through their treatment at Mathare, and, you know, dealing with over 500 people in support groups. For Kenya, it is late interventions. You know, someone is not treated, you know, from when they are 12 or 14, even just with therapy. And now they are 40 and they are violent, and, you know, people have gone through different spiritual services trying to get healing. And when the spiritual fails, they go to traditional, and 30 years fall in the cracks as they're looking for this. So at the point where now they have become violent as a result of lack of early intervention, then it happens. And so for me, the issue of rights is not really what we fail to do, or it's not really what we do because of failure of having acted earlier, but it is looking at what are the root causes of these issues and how can we deal with them. So one is, you know, even just going into religious institutions and talking to churches and mosques and wherever, to get to understand the symptoms of mental health conditions and take them for treatment earlier, because that would reduce a lot of the violence that we do see in patients. I think another is also, and I think what people don't understand is that problem is not rights, it's the responsibility that comes with the right. And even for our patients in our support groups or persons living with mental health conditions, we encourage them to take charge of their care. You know, after diagnosis, you begin to learn yourself, you begin to learn your triggers. We encourage people to learn their triggers, and that immediately something is off, begin to take treatment then. Because when you go for treatment early yourself, like one thing my family always says is, I'm always the one to say, I need help, and this is the help that I need. So helping patients be able to understand their triggers and their initial symptoms, and we encourage patients, go for help at that time. Say it in the support group, I'm having this challenge. Let's get your friend in the support group to come to you, speak to you, and we address this thing while it is young. Because when you're still in charge, you know, when you're not yet severe, then you can be able to make decisions for yourself. Because even if you made an advance directive at Chiromo, for example, and now your cover ran out or something and you're at Mathare, then that advance directive, unless it was given to someone who's with you at the time that you're being taken to this place, then it is going to be ignored. So I think what we should be looking at is, what is the responsibility of these rights? For us to be able to give people legal capacity, what is the responsibility? And that also comes with, as psychologists, as I can see many of us are here, being able to encourage patients and families, and even speak on the media to say that we need to prevent mental illness. But where it comes, let's address it early, so that someone still has the capacity, not only to decide legally, but also to have the mental capacity to decide. So let me see if we have any comments from the chat. Kevin, have you been able to join us? Okay, let me.
Hello.
Yes, Kevin, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was sharing something. Allow me to just read some comments in the chat as you prepare to answer the questions that I had sent to you. So there's Patience Mwema who says, as you speak, Charity, I hear you, and I'm just thinking aloud, what is our health insurance doing about this? Just as you say, it's a gap, and I'm wondering, and I'm allowed to say no one is still looking into it as a mitigation. So the question is, what is our health insurance doing about this? Okay, I'll open it up to the floor for people to mention. The only thing I would want to say in advance is that, you know, insurance companies look out for themselves, not for us. And I remember even speaking to someone at the retirement, not retirement, IRA, Insurance Regulatory Authority. And they said that they are able to defend drivers because drivers complain, but they do not get complaints on health, and so they do not defend health. So that's something to think about. But I open it up for everyone to respond. What do you feel our health and insurance can do about it? Mudhoni Njage says, stigma and silence keeps families from not acting earlier and ignoring symptoms of mental health conditions. So I request you, Mudhoni, to then say, what is it we should do? So this is the problem. What is the solution? Patients Mwema, in regards to postpartum and other disorders that come with mental disorders among expectant women, and helping the patients be compliant. So again, patients, please tell us, what is it that we can do practically to help patients to be compliant? So Kevin, thank you for joining us, and sorry for the technical challenges that you had as you are joining, and thank you for taking initiative to ensure that you join us. So my questions are, what was your experience and what stood out for you in module 3 and 4? And can you provide a practical example of violation of these rights and how they can be better protected? There is actually an example that had been sent on the DU Quality Rights group, and you can feel free to use that example. Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay. It's very fortunate that my laptop is not
Sorry, Kevin. Sorry, we are not hearing you well. No, you're not.
You're not
clear.
getting.
Yes, we can hear you, but not clearly. We cannot hear the words you're articulating. Maybe try again.
Okay. Can you get me now?
Yes, it's better.
Okay. I'm saying that I had some time to log in. My phone has used to log in. I've borrowed another person. Like they want to take it from me because I don't have my laptop here. So I have quite a good number of challenges. Can I present tomorrow in the class that we will have tomorrow, if possible, with my laptop?
Okay. Yeah, that will be, it's not tomorrow, it's Saturday, 9 a.m. So
Yeah,
we'll be having another session like this one. But probably what you can do, because we can't hear you well, if you would not mind, typing in the chat that which you'd like to say, then on Sunday you can, on Saturday 9 a.m. you can still share. So maybe share some perspectives on the chat in regards to what stood out for you, how the experience was, but also beyond that, to the other two questions I had sent, that is, how can we practically advocate to increase public knowledge of these rights, and how can we apply this in our training and professional practice? So please share in the chat, just even in short form, just a few points, and then I can sample them. Okay, thank you,
okay, fine.
Modoni.
Let me do that.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. So Modoni Njagi, the solution is advocacy and training at community level. I totally agree with you. I like the option of approaching religious organizations like churches and mosques. Okay, good one. Now, do we have anyone who would like to share an experience that they thought about as they were going through the course, something you've seen in the past or something that concerns you? At least we have about 10 minutes, so please feel free to lift your hand and share anything that stood out for you, or a practical example, but also from what had been shared on the group. Someone had said, hello team members, involuntary admission of persons living with mental health conditions to rehabilitation centers is becoming a notable trend in the sector of mental health. Family members are also using the centers to settle scores with each other. On one case that has been presented to me is about a private rehab center that deployed heavily built persons who forcefully uprooted a lady from her room, drove her to their center. I think we've had that from one of the panelists as well. She was then, without her consent, sedated and admitted at the center. During the period of her stay in the center, she realized that most clients had been involuntarily admitted there as well. What has been your experience around such cases? How can we intervene as psychologists and counselors? What has been the trend in public hospitals? So anyone would like to respond, lift your hand, but also anything else that you would want to say, please lift your hand or unmute and share. Okay, as we wait for someone to respond, Naomi Ngugi, I have noted with concern that Charity has shared about culture. How can we create awareness and reduce stigma while incorporating various cultures? Good question. I take it back to the floor. Let's have someone sharing. Please unmute and share or raise your hand.
Okay, Charity, I'll go first.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, I'm Patience. And just to probably just add to what you've been talking about, and the presenter, Charlotte, we really thank you for sharing your how you're able to go through the lessons and what were your take-ups. So I feel, for me, I've been able to work at Mathari, and I hear what Charity is saying. There's a lot of admissions that are being done basically to sort, probably not basically for the interest of the patient, but probably to just be able to sort out issues that are family wrangles or the indifferences that are there in the family background. So for me, I feel like we probably would, one, work with the several institutions that are basically dealing with the mental issues, and probably have a curriculum and like a process that guides every patient that comes in. Because a majority, you'll feel like, for me, I was in a female ward where you could see through the files of the patient the similarity of the periods of the patient's recurrence, to the point that even when the family come, they will tell you, but usually for 3 months, this patient needs to be back at home. Then 3 months, they need to go back to the facility. So it is more a problem of, I'll say, not knowing, or also the systems that are working for us in the field that we are in. I'll say it's something new for us, especially in Kenya, and we are trying to adapt to it. So I'll say basically, let's start from the place of medical assessment before this client comes in, that I will not just diagnose this patient X with bipolar because they were admitted previously on bipolar. I need to always probably have a medical assessment at all length when I'm admitting a patient. Then I think too, probably for those patients who are not able to also just speak out themselves, a need for legal guardianship or conservatorship. So these people are able to, since they are not able to have that ability to make decisions for themselves, then we need an established legal guardianship. People who are more objective, and basically people who are not looking into sorting out issues by bringing their mothers, their brothers to the facilities to be taken care of, rather than them taking good care of them. Then I believe then the best interest standard, where I'll say we need to determine the necessity of that guardianship, that person who's speaking in the place of the patient. What is their interest? Is it basically to deal with the patient, or is it for the good of the patient? And finally, I'll just say, let there be a regular re-evaluation to this patient so that we are able to see, is there progress, or is it just a situation of people not being compliant to medication, or even just going home and they are triggered by the same things that we could have handled in the family setup before we take the patient back. So we are able to reevaluate the community where we are taking back our patients as they are going back to recover, and even prior our patient before we take them back to the community. So I think that's where I'll probably end on that. Thank you.
Okay. Excellent insights, Patience. I think you've brought out very valid points. And I think on the issue of language, because I always say, you know, the way we perceive things isn't always the way they are perceived, say, abroad. So you would find a lot of Kenyans, when using the word guardianship, culturally, they are actually talking about a supported decision-making, but legally, and that means even, you know, through our constitution, through our Mental Health Act, and even through the UN convention, the CRPD, guardianship is where someone has that legal status to take care of someone. And most of the time, it doesn't have the best interest of the patient. I was involved in a situation where a lady has schizophrenia, and that's a conversation we also need to have in terms of, sometimes in one of the examples in the videos did talk about where sometimes the illness makes you, causes you to be against someone. You know, part of the illness can make you hate someone, and this is the person that you're probably closest to. And so I think advance directives are good when made when someone is well, because sometimes the illness itself can make you choose the wrong person as a symptom. Yeah. So in one situation, there's a lady who had been treated for schizophrenia many years back, and somehow had gotten strong coping mechanisms and was not on medication for some time, and then she got unwell again. And the daughter, who, you know, had taken time to understand the illness and had even interacted with families to just try and understand how to help her mother better, did not have legal guardianship. So her sister and brother had legal guardianship. They were living in Nairobi while this lady was outside Nairobi. And so they were managing her property because, again, like you said, interests. A lot of times this is used where there's money involved. And so they were able to use the money for her property. So this sister, who had, you know, left her job to go and take care of her mother, was not allowed to enter the compound because the legal guardians denied it of her. They would call their mother and their mother sounded well on phone. So, you know, they were not doing anything about it. And so she got stuck, and we tried to do mediation with the family and they refused. So we got KNCHR, who also do mediation, but at least are feared to an extent. So we went to, you know, this area. I don't want to mention the place in case it's a story someone is aware about. And so we went with them because they have offices across the country. And so, and they usually start with mediation. So the issue was, okay, let's get this brother and sister and the other sister who's talking about, and the mother being unwell. And so everyone was able to say their side. And anyone, you know, everyone in that room just said that, yes, there is no way that someone would be well and they break a septic tank, a cement septic tank, you know, by digging it, you know. There is no way someone can be removing all the locks in the house, burning their bed, and which the guardians, you know, the legal guardians in Nairobi were not seeing because they are not there. And this girl would raise alarm at night. She's seeing big fires. And now even the caretaker, who the legal guardians had gotten, started stealing things in the house. It was a very messy situation. Finally, you know, through that mediation, they agreed that she should go to a doctor. Later, you know, they were also affected by COVID, and, you know, they lost their homes. They had to go back home. And it's only when they went back home that they realized how bad the situation was. And so this is just one example, but it's also to say, in terms of language, legally, guardianship is the legal guardianship that is given by court. Supported decision-making is what is being pushed for even in the Kenya Disability Act, but it's still not in practice in many ways. And the other thing probably to know about is, you know, like the comment we had from Mathare, and I know Mathare has really improved in the last 3 years. And, you know, there was a human rights, a quality rights assessment that was done. I'll try and, I don't know that there's a link for it, but it was published this year. It was done 4 years ago, and so much has already changed between when it was done and when it is published. We do have staff who've gone through polity rights, but we are pushing for more to be trained. And for them, the big issue is, you know, what do we do when so many people come when they are severe? You know, we don't want to seclude them, but when they are severe, and we already have nurses on wheelchairs, literally in wheelchairs, due to violent patients, then what should we do? And we do have, you know, enmity, let me call it that, between civil society and these public hospitals, because public hospitals feel these people who are talking about these rights have not actually even stepped into a facility and seen what is happening. So how are we supposed to respond to people who don't even understand what's on the ground? And so there's a bit of, you know, understanding that needs to be built there. We appreciate, you know, Mathare and other facilities beginning to engage in matters human rights. But the other thing is then, where do we start? I mean, donors are interested in human rights being protected, and you're more likely to get funding to you know, speak against seclusion than what someone here has talked about, supporting people as they live, which is what we'll be covering in module 5 and 6, recovery and reintegrating back into the community and the support that is needed. I remember we at the National Quality Rights meeting that we had, which Dr. Menecha visited, you know, Mathare were asked, are you still doing seclusion? And they said, yes. And they were asked why, and they said, we don't have the technical and financial capacity, and the people that we're getting are very serious. So they are willing to stop it. But when you say the alternative, for example, is, what do we call it? De-escalation, you know, where you talk to someone to reduce, that usually works when someone is not very severe, you know? So there's a lot of black and white in that. But I think the issue is the responsibility that comes with the right. Who is willing to take it up? There's a time in our support groups, the issue of being beaten by guards came up. And, you know, people shared very, very, very sad and painful experiences. And, you know, I told them, I mean, we had an expose by CNN at Mathare that, you know, we are still recovering from, I think, 10 years later. And that probably going to media may not be the best way, because we already struggle to get people accepting to go to psychiatric facilities. And some of these issues, when they are in the media, they make people, you know, not go for treatment even more. And so we approached the administration, we documented experiences, and we said, this issue of being bitten by guards, or, when you're getting it is a male guard, removing your inner garments for you to be injected, or being bitten, because this guard is small-bodied, and usually when people have psychosis, there is so much adrenaline that like a small girl will, be held down by 4 men because of adrenaline. And so the issue was, how do we stop this? So we reported it to the hospital, and we told them we've asked our patients not to go to media, to give you an opportunity to work on this, and if it is not worked on, then we scale it up to the media. And so there were 2 trainings that were done by guards, and they got new guards in, and right now it's something that's taken seriously. And what we discovered is that people were complaining more about being beaten than even being in seclusion. So even those who are put in seclusion, they were complaining about the beating of the guards more. And so being able to address that is a lower hanging fruit. And so what I would say is, when we are looking at coercion, violence, and abuse, we need to look at it in a very wholesome way. We had people who are saying they were emotionally abused, and that's, as bad, if not worse. And so we are also able to raise that. So I think this is a very controversial issue. It will continue to be. I think what I would encourage us is even to take this conversation forward, even on the DU Quality Rights Group, because many are not here today, so that we can continue this conversation and give more examples, and even say, yes, there's something that Charlotte said that made me think of A, B, C, D, so that, because this is a very hard conversation to complete right now. Our time is up, but the conversation should continue. So let me encourage you, whatever has stood out for you, or whatever has made you think twice, please post it on the group. Let's continue the conversation there. But allow me to just read some comments. So Kevin was able to share that he loved the training. It has helped him in different levels. His cousin has epilepsy, which we said is a neurological disease. And through the training, I have been able to learn ways in which I can restore her health status. That is fantastic. He has requested to do his presentation on Saturday. We'll be having this again at 9 a.m. for those who are not able to attend this session. Beatha Makali says mental healthy problems, I think she meant mental health problems drain families and friends, and sometimes affect psychologically people around them. What's the plan to help caretakers of these individuals? I love that question, because I am a caregiver as well. There's a blog that I had done out of the families that have supported. I think I'll share it on the group. It just talks about how difficult it is for a caregiver in Mukuru slum with her son with schizophrenia, and the journey that she went through. I will share that. I think I'll also share a link to a story of one of our support group members who was at the Father Pesa, this place they were locking guys up in a church in Kisumu that has been on the news over the years. So I'll share that as well, so that we continue the conversation. But yes, we do need caregivers supported. The reason why I like that, the one for Father Pesa, the one that my friend did, is you're able to see how much the grandmother loved this boy, loved him to the core, but she was forced to tie him up to go and look for money. And it really comes strongly in the story that she's not tying up this person because of malice or hate, but it is because practically no one else in the community can help her care for this boy. And either they sit with the boy and sleep hungry, or she ties the boy to go look for help. And I think that's what we should be discussing in terms of, if we are to stop coercion and abuse, how do we deal with the root causes that cause people to do those things? So let's continue the conversation on the chat. Let me see if there's any other comment. Okay. Emma Mwangi, I went to Mathare and one patient pinched me for this reason. If this person had access to something dangerous, they could harm others. So even as we respect their rights, it is good to be vigilant. Yes, they are secluded. Yes, it is. Okay, let me try read that again. I went to Mathare and one patient pinched me for no reason. If this person had access to something dangerous, they could harm others. So even as we respect their rights, it is good to be vigilant. Yes, they are still secluded, injected, and threatened. Thank you. I think that just increases our conversation. And someone in the national, committee also said, even me, I'm a psychologist, and I didn't understand the issue of coercion until I was seriously slapped by a patient. So yes, these are things that we should look at. And what I'm hoping for quality rights, because just as I am bringing together universities, I'm also speaking to professional health associations. And one of the things we are looking at is to get them trained, but also to look at what are the challenges they have as health professionals, or even the many psychologists here. We have the Kenya Counselors and Psychologists Board that has been set up this year after a long fight to have it. And one of the discussions we are having is that they do want to make quality rights mandatory for all members, but also to set places where we can actually talk as patients, as caregivers, professional and family, to be able to say, okay, this is the problem. Where do we start? I mean, this is we won't finish the elephant in one sitting. So which part can we start dealing with and come to an agreement, as patients, as caregivers, professional and family. So these are very, very valid questions. Let's continue them on the chat. So I want to thank everyone for making time to join us today. Thank you for participating. Thank you for making this an interesting conversation, as much as I was hoping that it would be. So thank you for that. I'd like to thank our panelists, Charlotte, Kevin, and Mwalimu Irene, for their thoughts. I thank you for the participants for sharing through the chat and even in speaking. Please, let's continue this conversation on the chat. Quality rights is actually a cost that's being charged in some countries. We don't know how long we will have until we would have to charge it. So please encourage people to complete. I think the more we share these conversations outside this chat into the main chat, the more we will get people's attention, because we would want to finish and graduate with a good number. Thank you, everyone. Let me allow Collins to say something. Collins is a QR champion. Sorry, I had intended to give him some time. He's a QR champion who, I think is it at Kibera Slum, Collins? So just maybe share something small on the module 3 and 4 before we close. Thank you for always making time to join us in this conversation. Collins, there's a bit of background noise.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Collins here, Singamkoa from Huruma Mathare. I'm also glad I've been part of the conversation. I've been listening to you. It has been informative. I've learned a lot also. And I'm looking forward to more sessions like this with you. What I can say is let's be committed to finish up the modules, because in the process you will be learning a lot that you don't know. Yeah. Anything else, Charity, that I can say?
Is there a practical example that you can share on violence, coercion, and abuse through the program that you've been doing, and something you've learned through that?
Yes. Okay, previously, before also taking the modules, I used to see patients being forced. There's a friend of mine, I once saw he was tied because of the condition he was in before taken to the hospital, and I came to realize that was wrong. Before then, I never knew that it was wrong, because I saw he was they had to use force so that to manage to take him to the hospital. But now at least I see there is that we have to give everyone his right to make consent before taking charge or tying someone, because at the end of the day you may be harming this person. Yeah.
All right, and that would affect them psychologically and mentally. All right, thank you so much, Collins, for sharing. Again, thank you to all our participants. I see there's something on the chat. Thank you to Charity. Thank you, everyone. Please encourage, please speak about, sorry, when I was at Mathare, a patient spit on me for no reason. I think that is a psychologist. I think you guys have been through, you need mental support in caring for us because we are also traumatizing you. So kindly, just write something on the main chat about something you've learned today that you agree with or you don't agree with or that you've realized. Let's take this conversation to the chat. Asanteni sana. We look forward to having the last discussion in 2 weeks. And we are discussing with faculty to see whether that would be a virtual or hybrid session, because we would want to combine it with the graduation. So I encourage you to complete module 5 and 6 and share your certificate, encourage people to finish. DESTA is our first pilot for universities, and we really need it to be a success so that other universities are challenged to take this up. And even as you do that, we would want DESTA to be able to run a sustainable program. And that means that you here, you who has done quality rights, can help ensure that this program runs sustainably at DESTA by providing your capacity and even beyond, because I know some of those who've joined us have graduated, so that we're able to not only start QR in institutions and in associations and in different places, but to ensure that it can run sustainably by its own through taking ownership. Asanteni sana, till next time. Bye.
Bye.